Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. For our next speaker, I'd like to introduce Eric Blum from BMC. Eric has 15 years experience. He's the current CTO and will be speaking on why IoT needs AIOps. And I'll just pass over to Eric now.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, John. Yeah, so if you wonder my accent, I'm from Paris. I hope you're going to enjoy that. So yes, I've been at BMC for 15 years, and I like to not go so far back. A year ago, Cisco actually made a survey about how successful our company going with their IoT project. And I don't know if you remember that survey, but a year ago, it was reported that for about 60 to 70% of customers had challenges deploying their IoT projects. So the question is, why that? And how have we been doing so far to actually get better at making IoT projects successful? And I like to actually look at it on three main challenges customers have experienced when deploying IoT project up to the pilot phase, and more important, to an industrial scale. And I would summarize that in three words. First, it's all about the digital experience for the people to embrace and adopt the value proposal coming with the IoT infrastructure. B, it's a question of pace. How quickly can you adapt? How quickly can you develop to match the feedback of the first users on the project to make sure that you keep on having and bringing more value to the people with the project you deal. On the three, it's a question of scale. And obviously everyone speaks about scale, number of objects and so on. I would actually position that scale problem as an operation problem more than anything else. So I'm going to give three examples about that. What was the problem, how it has been addressed by three major industrial customers. And then I'm going to actually expose to you what are the technologies in the range of cognitive and AIOps, which have helped customers to bridge those gaps and overcome those challenges to be successful in their business. So, the first one is about the digital experience. So I'm going to take two examples in the car industry. First example about the digital experience is Ford. So when I visited Ford some time ago in Detroit, they shared with me that all their operations was set up to go and handle 70,000 employees. That's what the IT is up to. And they are actually shared with by releasing Ford Pass, which is a smart device-centric IoT platform where there's a lot of sensors in the car, the sensors connect to the smartphone of the driver, and then that enables the driver to actually have support on data exchange, on services from the Ford central point. It's now a question about how they're going to support 10 millions of users to start with. And the question they had is, how do we do that? What is the interface we need to propose for drivers to have the most natural way to get access to these services, but also to understand that they may have challenges using the services, getting the value of those services, so having this unique driving experience. So it's very much about thinking not only about the people using the Ford Pass, and we're all focusing when we develop these projects about how it's going to look like for the user, but it's also thinking about those people who's going to be at the service desk, the people who are going to have to support those 10 million users, and what's going to be at stake for that. Pace, Continental, the well-known tire manufacturing company, has figured out that tires are getting more and more of a commodity. So no surprise, they looked at, with this evolution to AV and EV, how they can actually piggyback on that and actually leapfrog that to find here a growth engine. So they developed some incredible technologies on that. Not the point here during this time to tell you about the great thing Continental does in the world of IoT for the car. But for me to share with you that they wanted to accelerate the development cycle in a massive way. So they went full speed literally, full speed on agile. And they realized that none of the rest of the production chain was ready within IT to support that fast delivery. We're speaking about tens of new releases per week, where IT is used to a handful of major releases per year. So how do they get to that world that they have all this new development happening, being smoothly released to production and providing the right level of support to do that? So name they are using, and you can go on that side of the show, they're using the GitHub, the Jenkins, the Jira, all of the alike. How do they support that? So that was a key element for making sure that all the things being deployed can be known and can be supported and operated, secured, made compliant, without being a massive delay time between the code's ready and the code goes out. What am I speaking about? DevSecOps. And the last element, and I'm going to dive a little bit more with this example, is Siemens Building Technologies. Interesting that that room is sponsored by Siemens. So Siemens Building Technologies, easy to understand the use case here. It's about buildings, so what do? They provide business IoT capabilities for managing fire alarms, air conditioning, energy efficiency, da-di-da-di-da. No surprise. What I was speaking about in terms of scale is interesting. When we started to engage with Siemens Building Technologies, we had already in mind with them that would be about 100,000 buildings, 40 million to 400 million CIs, sensors, 400 million CIs. And we now actually fast tracking with them the fact that it's going to be about 2 billion CIs. So how do you deal with that size, that scale of infrastructure from an operation point of view so that it's not being exposed, and you can actually get all the right thing in terms of information. So here I'm going to dive a little bit further down. You can actually understand what is at stake in terms of deploying all those different sensors and actuators within the building. You're certainly familiar to the fact that on each story, or depending the side of the floor, there are going to be some gateways to connect natively with all the sensors. Those gateways are pretty interesting body on the edge. And it's all about how you provide the tools to manage that. So do you go with standard IT monitoring tools? Is that going to be enough to actually manage those 100,000 gateways, those 2 billion sensors? That's the problem statement. So the building technologies, on-site service and service centers needs to have a view about what is being deployed, understand and have the knowledge specific to all those configurations that have been put in place, understand how it is performing, and actually take it a step further, which is about having real-time analytics on how the things are actually evolving, and actually move from not just monitoring what's happening, but having some predictive information about what it is likely to happen, so that they can actually go and do the right on-site service to make sure it works. So this is where AIOps is starting to play a big time, because it's beyond human scale to be able, on human capabilities, to deal with that level of new codes, that volume of infrastructure in a given way. So AIOps is going to play, and is playing actually in this use case, a very important element. So if you look at the new formula for building an operation to support an industrial scale IoT business, and we remember that this is about 60% to 70% of the users last year saying it's a problem. This is what the formula is about. AIOps with big data, machine learning, is becoming the central point of the operating platform. And that enables to actually get from monitoring to the service desk to the automation. And that is actually enabling you to have a view on what are the services being deployed in the latest version, in the actual configuration, what is the experience people are getting on these services, and provide them the most native interface possible, and have a view about how you're performing financially given all those elements deployed on the level of support that you have to provide. So that's a pretty key element that we have to build given that you have so many stakeholders in the game. Yet another point that has been even clearly identified as a gap on IoT projects. IoT project is a multi-stakeholder game. How do you give them access to those information? Some of them being interested by the services, some of them being interested by the the marketing guys, some of them being interested by the financial guys, the sales guys. So it's very important to understand that there are more and more stakeholders that have to get access to different type of information, that those information is going to come from, in a massive way, from all these different type of infrastructure, and that's the game. That's the new game. Obviously, at the end, what you're looking is still, the four main drivers. It's pretty interesting to look at your IoT project and identify what are those drivers, what are the metrics attached to those drivers, and how you can actually perform on that. Question to the audience. How do you line up on those business drivers? Have you defined clear metrics? Are you monitoring the success and the deployment of your project on those metrics? How does the operating system, therefore, give you reasonably good insight on how you perform on those metrics? So, there's a journey to get there. Most people have already kind of modernized their service desk, but it's all about, does your service desk, that the way you understand what's happening in the field for your customers on those infrastructure you're deploying? How do you get a view on the services? How are you becoming service aware? Not just infrastructure aware, service aware. How do you automate all those operations? How do you make sure that those remediations are taking place automatically? There can't be a guy behind every ticket to go and fix a single problem. It's not going to work. And the last one is obviously, hey, by the way, bad news. It's going to be in the multi-cloud. Okay, so another level of complexity. So this is what we are actually developing at BMC, and actually helping customers to build that journey and grow their maturity with a different set of capabilities that we are proposing. How does it look like? I started with digital experience, so let's speak about experience. Well, you want to make sure that you are having a way that as you have understood and gather all this information about the configuration that are being deployed, like the gateways in the building, the sensors in the building, as you are having a view of that, you have the ideal starting point to provide maps about those services that are on where they are available, give insight about where the point of interest are actually proposed, and give the people a view that they can understand how to better use those different elements, and how they can potentially actually make some requests from their single point of service right to the different environments. So as an example, this is how the thing's being implemented, how the system is going to discover that it's been deployed, so that then the person is, in a contextual way, having a view of all that, and can actually have a natural interface to type or to voice his concern or his question to the service. So that is what we are currently doing. So it starts with, we know what is deployed and where it's deployed. So there is a critical capability, we believe, in the world of IoT, which is about discovering what is being deployed and being able to build the relationship between all those different elements in the IoT infrastructure that have been deployed. It's fluid by definition. It's very fluid. So you have to have that. So people say, well, my system is going to say that this is there. Problem is that you may have built in your infrastructure a way that a sensor or gateway says, hey, I'm here, but how does it relate to a service? What is the service? What is the application that will actually, be in relationship with those elements? So our suggestion is not only to make sure that you can go and discover and have a view about all the deployed configurations, but you also have an understanding in which service context it is. Is that just for the sake of being like a good architect? Well, we think not. Why that? Because we all aim at having automated remediation when there is a problem, all right? We want the things to be fixed by themselves. How do you fix it if you don't understand the service context? What are the other things that are at play if I go and change that element at that place? If you don't have that service context, you are likely to make a problem. By the way, you remember that good old rule in IT? 80% of the problems comes from mismanaged changes. Bad news, doesn't change with IoT, doesn't change in the cloud, it's just inflated. It's just going to be more. So without the service context, there is only more likelihood that you're going to expose yourself with badly managed changes, therefore more problems. The only problem is that now it's touching customers, not only end users, customers. So, that's one thing to know where it is. What if now you have to figure out how these things are performing? Are they behaving the right way? So given the scale and the pace that I spoke about, there is no way in this new world where we can actually go sit down and define what are the thresholds and how the things should perform or we expect them to perform. No way. So it's another environment where AIOps is playing a big game on machine learning. Our systems actually look at how all those things perform, learn from it, define normal behavior, identify trends, and actually predictively, proactively identify if those trends are starting to go outside of normal range to actually alert the operations so that they can go and do something before the problem becomes so critical that the end user have a problem with it. That's all what we want, is proactive fixing, proactive engagement. So that is what the system do in a big way, and we think it's actually very, very critical. Now, it's great to identify that a problem will happen. You want to make sure that then the right people are going to engage to actually go and do something before the problem happens. How to do that is by connecting this AIOps environment with the service management environment. And the service management having all the right information into it. So now, in the world of IT, we were already under a tsunami of events. What we call the Christmas tree. Everything red, so shut it down. Okay, so are we going to get less of that with IoT? No, we're only going to get more. So that is actually helping you to, with a service view on different techniques of machine learning, to consolidate all those information together and to actually bring them into a meaningful incident that can be automatically routed to the right person. So how do we know who is the support group to route that incident to? How do we know that? Well, that's a very heavy lifting work. Okay, if you've been into that game, identifying, okay, so if it is that type of incident with that category, given I may know the category, let's give it to that group of people, or that group of people, or that development team. That is a lot of work. So our view now is that we're using systems like Watson to learn what is in the ticket description from the structured data and the non-structured data, so the ticket description and all the things, and learn about what is the best group to actually go and assign that ticket to. So as we go, obviously at the beginning, we're teaching the system, and as we grow, the system learns faster and faster, so that you don't have to keep on working on it. So you already see 3 or 4 use of my wheel with big data, machine learning, AIOps, okay, which are pretty critical. So let's now actually close with one element, which is about, okay, it's all about security over there. Okay, there is security. Okay, absolutely. So now that I have given you an opportunity or a way to get an insight on all the deployed configurations, I'm providing you an opportunity to take all the data of the known vulnerabilities and reconciliate that insight on all the configuration that you have deployed with the known vulnerabilities. I give you here an opportunity to actually then also have a view on the severity, so the risk exposure in terms of vulnerabilities, so that you can decide whether you want to go and remediate that right away, or it's okay to have that fixed in the next batch of service, say in 2 or 3 days. So that is another element. And obviously, here again, the system has a lot of self-learning techniques to actually assist the users on the operations, on the security guys to actually go and do their job. So, with BMC IoT solutions, we think that we can definitely help you to better model the services that you want to deploy. And when I say better model, it may not be on the business element of it, but that you can have them model in a way that they are ultimately on initially operation ready to go at scale and at pace in an industrial way. 60% of the project don't go that far. So that is all about enabling operations and to accelerate the deployments. So I hope that with that short insight about what we're doing and how AIOps of BMC can help you get there, I've actually given you some ideas of different areas that you could actually go and engage with BMC. So I'd like to quickly close with a short insight about who's BMC, who are we. We've been in that business for more than 30 years. We are a $2.5 billion company. We operate worldwide. And we have over 6,000 employees at BMC. A few of them are on our booth over there. And if anything, if you like to play race circuit cars, you can go there and see about how we connect race circuit experience with IoT, and how if you do something like my car is going off track, it creates a ticketing remedy. So, which is really critical. So I'm 2.5 minutes before the end of the session. I hope that was informational. And if there are any questions, well, thank you for bringing them on. Well, if you want to raise your question on the booth, I will be very happy to see you there. And but therefore, you have 2 minutes back to get another coffee or water. So thank you very much.